Where's Stardust? She's coming in a minute.
Anonymous sent $3. Here's another few bucks to let Mark stay on and talk about your expensive cigar habit. Gab lets Dr. Duke on. Just saying.
No. All right, now, I didn't say I wouldn't have it.
Real Sprocket sent $3. Should we do more of the Quran burning shtick in the West? All hail Rasmus Paludan.
I'm not big on that necessarily. I don't know what you think about Quran burning, Mark.
Look, I'm not big on Quran burning, quite simply because I wouldn't want people burning Bibles. I think it's just, I think that kind of sort of display is just sort of shock politics. It's there because somebody wants to make money from people who want to see shock politics. And it's very important, really, to understand that I'm not against Muslim people. I'm not against Muslims as long as they're in Muslim countries. Now, I believe the West should be white, it should be Christian, and it should be European, and it should be based around our culture. It should be based around our way of life, our traditions, our heritage, our religion should be central to that. But equally, I believe that, in Muslim lands, their religion, their traditions, their heritage should be, central. And quite frankly, I don't want to burn their religious books. I don't want them burning my religious books. And I think that, we should have a mutual respect. And I showed a video the other night on my show by an Iranian general who was talking about white genocide, who was talking about white replacement, who was talking about issues that, we, the people watching, would all find very, very interesting. And he was saying, look, the West is being destroyed. Soon there won't be any European people left. And I don't think Muslims are necessarily the enemy. I think the enemy are the people who are aggressively causing wars in the Middle East and then building this stream of refugees who all end up inevitably coming to Europe, which then destroys European nations as well. That's who our enemies are, and we need to remove those people from power here in the West. And I believe then, the West and the Middle East could peacefully coexist.
Here's Stardust. Thank you, Mark, for that. Here's Stardust just came into the panel. Welcome, Stardust. How's it going?
Oh, hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
You're quite welcome. I appreciate you being here. I don't know if you've met Alt-Hype or Mark Collett, but those are our two guests here.
Okay, nice to meet you. I don't think I've met you before.
You haven't? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Very good.
I've seen your show.
Introduce. I don't think Mark knows who you are. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Stardust. I'm mostly a Twitch streamer, though I stream on YouTube sometimes as well.
When you say you're a Twitch streamer, does that mean you sit there in your underwear breathing into a microphone, or do you?
I'm not one of those Twitch streamers.
Games?
I'm not one of those. I don't do either one of those things. I'm not an ASMR streamer.
What do you do on Twitch then if you're not attempting to play games and you're not in your underwear?
Usually we're talking about current events or politics or pop culture, things like that. So, or we're yelling with other people in panels usually. So it's very chaotic. Yeah, it's fun. But yeah, I'm not from that part of Twitch. So yeah. Oh, sorry, my chat is yelling at me already. Sorry.
Are you actually allowed on here? Because people on Twitch who stream on Cozy get thrown off for streaming on Cozy for doing stuff that Twitch don't agree with. So
I am on YouTube right now. So
no, but the people have been thrown off Twitch just for appearing on this show. Even if they're not,
I don't know about this show, but
they haven't done it with me yet. So we'll just have to see. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Female privilege.
Well, also politically provoke that channel. They kind of like post things, and so there's a sort of even if it's on their own platform, there's kind of like a degree of separation there. One thing I would want to say about like the Quran burning thing and why that's kind of silly is one, you should always be skeptical of something where you have like a hall pass. Right, where basically it's probably less so in the UK, but in the US, there's being anti-Islam is a little bit edgy, but it's like it's an acceptable thing you can do. You can be anti-Islam in the US, and so that's like kind of a red flag. Is like when you're like it's a kind of, I guess you could say, groupism that is allowed. So always be skeptical of when you're given a hall pass by the establishment. I think Mike Enoch said something to this effect. And the second thing is that when you focus on when you focus on like burning the Quran or doing a stunt like that, it causes people to focus on the Islam thing as opposed to these people are foreign and we have a right to our own people. And it gets people down the rabbit hole. It's like, oh, deconvert them from Islam and then things will be hunky dory. When that's it's a diversion as well. So anyway, sorry, just burning on that.
All right, Jakey
No, I
is.
agree with what you're saying. It's a good
upset
take, my
chat.
friend.
All right, now Jakey's upset in chat. That wasn't anti-Islam enough, I think, for him. All right, now we have a caller. I wonder how that's gonna go. Go ahead, caller. Hello, sir, or madam, or whatever. Are you there?
Yeah, looks like your boy Vickers is cooking up some new
All
beer.
right, thank you. I don't care. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, now let's see. Stardust is here. Now, sorry, the trolls are always gonna roll in. I think there is a super chat though. Let me see here. The Ralph Amel rises. Okay, I think this might be a song, so we might have a little bit of a break here if you want to get some water. About 60 seconds. Let me see if I can turn this back on. Nutrient Enjoyer.
Nutrient Enjoyer sent $10. The Ralph Amali rises.
Thank you, sir. Oh, I thought that was going to play a song. Okay, there we go. Oh,
Andy Wilson's
okay.
Dead
Thank you,
Baby
thank you,
sent
thank you,
$2
thank you,
from
thank you. I don't care. I don't care at all. All right, now. Oh, Jesus. Now, do you know about the debate tonight, Stardust, at all?
I only, so I'm going to be honest with you. I'm very new to this space. So I know that it's a lot of like infighting and I'm trying to stay out of it. But yeah, I know that it's Jim and Nick are going to be debating tonight, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And I know that they're kind of beefing. So that's pretty much the extent that I know.
I found it interesting that Nick is going hard on Jim not being funny. So, and that is like for Jim, I think that's kind of like the jugular. That's, I think, like the only thing. I doubt Jim could be rattled or anything, but I think that's the only thing that could actually like get to him saying, you're not funny. So,
yeah.
Well, they have a good debate and hopefully it's a funny debate then, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be heated right from the start is what I think. I really don't see how it's going to be any type of patty cake, right? Or like feeling out. I think it's probably going to be fireworks right from the start. I just don't see any other way given what's been said on both sides. And Nick particularly went hard this morning. I don't know who all saw that stream. Of course, I'm biased. I think he was on the money with what he was saying, but we're going to find out 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. We got this big panel. That's why we're doing this. All these people all day long. I would say this is one of the premier matchups we've had for sure. So now we could get you. Let's see. My phones are just buzzing all over the place. Yes, I see what's going on. Sad. It's sad. I'll say this. Anyone who would, without naming any names, of course, not talking about anybody in particular, anyone who would use a child as a prop in an internet war, literally, the family courts, other courts, those type of proceedings in their war on the internet, and they're that short-sighted, that pathetic. I think that type of behavior kind of speaks for itself, really. And so I could go into it. I'm sure it's just a thing to bait me anyway, and to get me to go in about my son and all that stuff. And I'm not gonna do it. My lawyer told me not to do it, and she's right. And so these people are just negative people who are so far into the Ralph derangement syndrome that they would do what they do, basically. So I guess that'll be my response. Very, very vague, and I think very responsible. Believe me, I would like to go full Ralph Amel mode and just torch it up, but it's not good for me. It's not good for my son. It doesn't further my interest. So just no point in that. I see people pointing out that I have a female lawyer. That is true. I do have a female lawyer. She's very good, as was my other female attorney here in Richmond. It's like Charlie's Angels up in this bitch. You know how I roll. I got a team of badass female attorneys. That's all I fuck with. All right, now, what are we talking about? You walked in, Stardust. What did you think about what Mark was saying there? Did you?
I only caught the tail end of it. So I only caught the tail end of it. I know that you were talking about like Muslims in European countries. You don't think that that Muslims could like assimilate well into these countries, like in the United States and things like that?
They don't assimilate well. It's not that I don't think they don't assimilate well. They have a culture and a way of life which isn't just different to ours. In many ways, it's diametrically opposed. And because of that, peaceful separation is far more preferential to conflict. And clash of cultures always leads to conflict. If you came to somewhere in the UK, I could take you around places in the UK that don't look anything like Britain anymore. They don't look anything like England. They look like an Islamic country that's been imported here, because these people come here. They aren't actually coming here because they want to be British. They're coming here because they want to be exactly what they are, but with British benefits, i.e. healthcare, free housing, lots of generous government handouts. So they come here, they bring their families, they import their culture to the exclusion of the indigenous peoples, and they create ethnic ghettos, which then grow in size, their numbers grow until they've taken over entire towns or entire areas of cities. And the indigenous people, white people, are then pushed out of those areas, and it leads to inter-ethnic conflict on the edges of these ethnic ghettos. And I don't think that's good for white people. I don't think that's good for white people for a number of reasons. But I think in the long term, it's not good for Muslim people either.
So what about countries like the United States is not... I feel like the United States is a good example of a place where like people are very like intermixed with each other. And you'll see like a lot of these different groups like kind of intermingling, and there's not really as much, especially in rural areas, like these ethnic ghettos, right? People are kind of forced to be amongst each other and forced to assimilate, kind of like that.
Okay. Have you
Also,
seen
announcement, I'll let you get in. Announcement: the YouTube has been struck down here during the stream, which is not a surprise. But I just thought I'd give an update here that the YouTube has been struck down. Now go ahead, Alt-Hype.
I don't know if you've seen this thing. This is the racial dot map. So Stardust is talking about how there's not a whole lot of racial tension in the in the rural United States. And what I would yeah, but a lot of people haven't seen this. I'll post this in the Hangout chat. This is the racial dot map of the United States. And so you're talking about places that either A, don't have a whole lot of people, and B, have it's overwhelmingly white. So that is yeah. So now, the thing about the United States is that the United States is a continent. It's not a country. And so when you say that, there's not a whole lot of conflict in the United States, a lot of that is because the United States is fairly, I would say, is fairly well segregated. It's a fairly segregated area. Even if you look at sort of a map, you see sort of like the Hispanic areas. They just sort of pop out at you. Even the areas that are mixed, like down in the South, they're not as mixed as it might seem. And so basically what I'm saying is the United States is pretty segregated. And so.
Well, I think one aspect of it as well, though, is there are a lot of people in the United States who, while they may have like a religious background, they themselves are not like practicing the religion, right? So you'll see like a lot of cultural Christians, cultural Jews, right? So
cultural Jews, right?
What?
Okay. All right. Well,
what do you mean by cultural Jews? Jews that don't go to the synagogue but sell us pornography instead.
Okay. Anyway, just let her speak.
So if we have a lot of people who have these backgrounds in these religions, but aren't really religious people, don't really practice those religions. And I think also like when you have that kind of dynamic, I think that kind of takes away a lot of like these tensions that you talk about. Now you're talking about like Muslims. What would you say about like people who are cultural Muslims, right? Like people who maybe have a Muslim background, but don't really practice the religion, are pretty assimilated into Western society.
I think, and I don't mean this to sound sort of patronizing, but I'm not sure you have a great grasp of these kind of issues. And you really do need to visit these Muslim areas to see what we mean. Now, if you Google a place called Savile Town, it's a place in West Yorkshire in a town called Dewsbury, and Savile Town is an area that's been completely overtaken. Everything about the way these people behave is different to the way the indigenous people would behave. They have their own shops, they have their own community centers, their own religious buildings, they have their own way of dressing, the signs are in their language. They have literally imported everything from their homeland here and set up, like, if you like, it is a colony. They have set up a colony here in the UK. Now, that is something which isn't about integration. These people aren't here then primarily to integrate. They didn't look at the map and say, wow, I really want to be British. I really want to fit in with these people. They came here and said, we like certain aspects of this country. We like the free healthcare. We like the education. We like the housing. We like the fact the government gives you benefits when we decide not to work. We like the fact that we can have 3 wives and 2 of them don't qualify actually as wives under British law, so they get single mother benefits. So our children get looked after and we don't have to pay for them. They like all of those things, but they don't want to be British. They still want to be Islamic. So they import their language, their dress, their religion, their practices towards animals. And all of these things are things that we don't practice. Now, this presents a number of problems, and you see the opposite of integration. I'll explain why you see the opposite of integration. In Muslim households, the children spend the vast majority of time with the women, but the women wear the full face veil. They do not have the same practices as Western women, so they rarely leave the home. Often they speak their native language. They don't speak English, but because the children grow up with primary contact with their mother, they then don't speak English as a first language. And you now have large areas of towns and cities in the UK where the next generation of children not only are not indigenous to these islands, i.e. they're not white British, but they don't even speak English as a first language. And I think that presents a real ever-present threat to Britain as a culturally cohesive nation. And I think that will lead, it's already leading to ethnic conflict now. As that accelerates and as white people edge ever closer to becoming a minority in Britain, we head towards a time where there will be ethnic conflict. And I believe because of the anti-white agenda being spread by the government, white people will not be on an even footing during this conflict. We will be a hated and despised minority who have our hands tied, and we will be a victim class at the hands of these people. And we've already seen this in the UK, where hundreds of thousands of white girls have been sexually abused by men who are largely of Pakistani Muslim descent.
Okay. I can't really speak too much on what's going on in the UK. I'm just going to be straightforward with you there. I can't really speak on it. I don't really know a whole lot about it. And yeah, I would just have to look into that more. But I think that America is pretty good with integration. I mean, I don't know. I think.
Whereabouts do you live?
I live in the DC area. So I think it's pretty good with integration.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. And you know, my family's of Muslim origin or Muslim background, right? I'm not really a practicing Muslim. I'm pretty atheist. But I think that I've seen plenty of Muslim people who integrate very well into American society, at least. And I know that's anecdotal, but I wonder if because the way that the U.S. is set up and the way that kind of we're forced to intermingle things like that, I wonder if that makes it just a better place for integration to happen.
Okay, I would respond to that. First off, like you're dealing with. I don't know if we want to talk about like hard genetic differences between populations, and so you're going to get like basically Caucasians are going to be easier to integrate into a singular homogeneous state, regardless of whether they're darker skin or lighter skin. And so I guess what you're saying is you break down like those cultural things, those sort of cultural differences. Mm-hmm. That the integration comes about, and like, yeah, it does. And I mean, I think Stardust is a living example of that. I think what Mark Collett is saying is that those things don't get broken down unless they're actively and aggressively broken down, and also why bring them in the first place. And I'm saying about this because something that a lot of people don't know about immigration to the United States is that back when immigration to the United States was almost entirely European, it was just the norm that when an immigrant group came to the United States, they were heavily discriminated against in order to become American, right? So you had like ordinances shutting down schools in the native language, like for Italians and Irish, and that was the process of assimilation. And it's not, and the thing is, when you say assimilation, it's not a nice thing. It's not a passive thing. Right, you have to bring the hammer down on these other European ethnicities in order to make them into quote unquote American, and that's just something that is not done with anyone else. There was a process of that attempting to be done with blacks in the U.S. Right, that kind of discrimination against them in order to assimilate them. But of course, my opinion here is, of course, there's a hard genetic difference with the African population. And so what you're talking about is something that can work with more Middle Eastern people who are similar enough to Europeans that they can form sort of a singular polity or volk or whatever you want to call it. But once you start to get into genetic differences, even those cultural barriers, even once you break those down, you're still going to have radically different kind of civilizational outlooks, we can say, and then we can go into like the kinds of, basically on the matter of government, what kind of policies certain people tend to support, and this of course gets into the heritability of political views, that these things are like largely genetic. So obviously that's not that I'm saying a lot of things that you may think are big if true, right? But it's a live setting, so I can't really say.
Yeah, I just want to point out something else as well. With this vast influx of people who have different values to us, we have seen a rise in certain, really negative, things within our society. I'll give you an example. We've seen a shocking rise in acid attacks on women. We've seen a shocking rise in female genital mutilation. Now, these are the sort of things that I don't think are net benefits for Britain. I'll give you another example. In Bradford, which is a place which is heavily Islamic in the UK, most of the Muslims there come from Pakistan. They're Pakistani Muslims. The hospital gives out special leaflets saying, incest is not a good idea. Do not marry your cousin. And this is because in Bradford, there is a shockingly high number of birth defects because Pakistani Muslims are known for marrying their first cousin. And they marry their first cousins to ensure that money is kept within the family. So that rather than transferring money to another family through marriage, it stays within the family. But this is causing, these horrific birth defects in children, and it's causing this problem where the hospital are having to deal with severely disabled children. And there's also a problem where when these children are born, if they're born through home birth, because of their defects, the parents often quietly put them down. And they are now finding homes in Bradford where, unfortunately, there are the remains, the mummified remains in some cases, of babies that have been born to these incestuous relationships that had horrific birth defects. And unfortunately, the parents chose to, for want of a better word, euthanize them. And I think some of these things are huge cultural differences. And if those people want to live like that, if those people want that as their culture, if they are in their own country, it isn't my job to tell them how to live. It's up to them how they live. But I believe when they come to Western nations and they seek to bring those aspects of their culture with them, I have great concerns, especially as a father with a young daughter, that kind of cultural norm becoming the norm in Britain poses an existential threat to our people.
So I would agree with you. I think these things like FGM and acid attacks and domestic violence, these are all things that I would care heavily about, right? And I do think that obviously more traditional cultures, regardless of religion, are in general I have pretty hot takes on religion in general. I think most religions put women in a secondary status. Most religions are pretty bad to women if followed by well, wait a minute, let me finish.
There's a big difference between a woman staying at home and raising children, or a woman having her genitalia mutilated as a child.
Hold on, Mark. Let her. You did talk for a minute.
Most religions, if you follow to the letter, are not good for women. And that's why I just don't like religions in general. And I think you're right. Some religions are demonstratively worse to women, for sure. But I think having women from those cultures being able to come to places more forward societies, right? Less traditional societies where they can decide for themselves what to do is good for them. And you're spreading good values to them. You're giving them options that they wouldn't have had previously.
Look, I think you're wrong when you talk about religion in that way, especially when you talk about Christianity. You must have heard of women and children first. When the boat was going down, men stood together singing songs, expecting the icy water to kill them, as their women got on the lifeboats and sailed away to safety. When the tribe was threatened, when the nation was threatened, it was men that marched off to war to be hacked to death in some cold, muddy field by the adversary, as their women and children remained at home. When coal needed to be mined, it was men who went deep underground and crawled through foot-wide tunnels to bring up that black dirt that we all needed to heat our homes and put the food on the table. I think saying that women were somehow worse treated when in fact men usually have a shorter life expectancy in every Western nation due to the fact of their working conditions, and that they were always eager to march off to war to protect their nation, their women and their children. It's a bit of a disingenuous or ill-educated point.
I don't think so. So I think we can also tie men's shorter life expectancy to the fact that men just don't seek out healthcare on a regular basis like women do. Women are also more likely to seek out help. And that might be partly a cultural thing because men are kind of socialized to not seek out help. They're only socialized to seek out help if it's very, very dire, and that's not good for them. And we should probably change that. But these things about putting women first, saving the woman and the children, these are pretty universal things that you can see across the board. So you can see most people will give a certain amount of they'll infantilize women to some extent, right? Most religions will, but obviously there are some religions that are much more restrictive on women. So that's where I would probably draw the line. I don't think that there's anything unique about men going off to war based on religion. That's generally just something you see across the board, right? And I just don't. I don't like the restrictions that most religions place on women. I don't like the responsibilities, the unfair responsibilities that is put on men as well. I think that there needs to be a little bit more sharing of the burden. So I would still stand by my point and say that by allowing women from other cultures, more traditional cultures, to come to places like America or even Europe, you are allowing these women to create a future for their daughters and for themselves that they wouldn't have had previously.
Okay.
But I think you're missing the point in that when these women come, they come with their husbands and they don't leave behind the brutal practices. They're not leaving behind the incest, the forced marriage, the rape. They're not leaving behind the female genital mutilation and the acid attacks. That's being imported with them. And I also think when I hear women like yourself talking like this, you know, without being too rude to you, because I don't want to go down that line, it kind of sounds like you want to have your cake and eat it. You know, your explanation for men dying younger is very weak, and to sort of brush off the millions and millions of men who throughout the ages have died in the kind of harsh working conditions that women have never faced, in wars that women have never been on the front line at. It's a complete disregard for all.
I'm not intending to disregard. If that's what it came off as, I'm not. That wasn't my intention at all. Obviously, men have unfair burdens and responsibilities placed on them, whether that's through war, whether that's through harsh working conditions, etc. Right? But I think that I still would say that it only takes a generation or two for people to generally like integrate with their society. You can see this in America, like you can see with Muslim populations in America. A lot of the time, like yes, the immigrants who come over still hold a lot of their traditions, but give it a generation or two down the road, and people generally do integrate pretty well.
Yeah.
And I think that. I think that we're doing a disservice by not spreading these like ideals, right, to other places.
So one thing I would like in a lot of stuff that you say, for example, you point out men not seeking out help, and that is a socialized thing. And you mentioned things being like across the board, like men more likely to, greater just general expectation that men are supposed to work more or stuff like that. That, right, when you see something like that across the board, and that is a universal across, basically it's a universal, I think your bias to that should be that it is going to be something genetic in nature, whether it's a behavioral thing or whether, men not living as long, that could also just be not a function of their behavior, but the behavior itself, less likely to seek out help from other people, or just being, just less social people are going to less seek out anything, including medical help. So when you talk about these things and you say like, I guess what I'm getting at is that a lot of these behaviors, they are like heritable in nature. They're going to be a function of genetics. And so when you say that we're going to bring these people in and like it takes a single generation to create new norms of, say, women, women no longer being legally separated. You say, perhaps say in a lower class or however it is you want to define that, upper, lower, superior, inferior, whatever. That is also kind of a universal, right? That kind of attitude towards women is also kind of a universal, and it requires constant infrastructure, basically you have to force people to have this kind of gender equality idea. And this is kind of just an anecdotal thing, but back in like church groups or whatever, like I come from like rural middle America, and whenever we'd have any kind of event, anything that was being done, what would naturally happen is that like it's like the guys would be telling everyone what to do, and women would be just sort of going along, but doing the peanut gallery thing. That was sort of how it was, and it requires a great degree of intervention to break that. And so you could say it's good or bad. This is not saying that just because something is natural doesn't mean it's good. I'm not making the naturalistic fallacy. What I'm saying, perhaps to Stardust, is that what you're talking about, it clearly requires a greater degree of infrastructure and active promotion to make that work. Similarly, regarding immigrant groups, assimilation is not something that just happened. And I wouldn't say Muslims in the U.S. are assimilated. I mean, more assimilated than say Africans in the U.S. just because of the hard genetic differences. Despite having greater cultural differences, I would say Muslims are assimilated more simply because they're closer genetically, and so you don't have those hard, functionally impenetrable barriers. But the thing is, that's not being done particularly in the UK. I think the UK, and I don't know as much about other Western European countries, are particularly the worst in not doing what needs to be done to assimilate immigrants, which, it's not nice, but it's basically shaming and kind of taking the whip hand to saying you're not Italian, you're American. And I think there's a problem when you start bringing in immigrants of other clearly visibly distinct races, that there now becomes like, it becomes, I guess, more visible, the distinction, that taking the whip hand to somebody who looks visibly different to say you're not Mexican, you're American, and we're gonna ban Spanish, we're gonna ban all these things that I believe were necessary to do to force Italians to become American. Whether you think that's a good thing or bad thing, personally, I think it's more bad than good what happened. But that's basically, assimilation is not a nice thing, I guess.
I think it can be, though. I think assimilation, well, okay, let me start from the beginning of what you're saying. You're talking about there maybe is some genetic or biological reason for men and women falling into the roles that they do. And I don't disagree with that. I think that for sure, yeah, there is probably some biological reason why women and men fall into the roles that they do. I think I would still say, though, that regardless of that, a lot of traditional societies still put unfair kind of barriers on women, right? And still unfairly infantilize women, right? And I think that we need to have a society where women are more, even if they are biologically more inclined to something, if they need to, if they want to, that they have the ability to go outside of that, to expand their role, right? Because you never know what's going to happen with a family. You never know if your husband's going to die, if he's going to become disabled, things like that. And there needs to be like enough flexibility for a woman in this age to be able to go outside of her traditional roles. It just needs to be there. We don't live in a world where you're going to be protected. It's just not what it is. Secondly, I would say that I don't think assimilation necessarily has to be a bad thing, right? And I think that you can, for example, I've always considered myself American first, right? American first, and then of Indian origin second, right? Of Muslim background, secondary. These are all things that are secondary, right? But I've always been American first. American culture has always been like something that I grew up with. I couldn't imagine living in a different country than America, and I wouldn't want to live in a different country other than America. So I think that assimilation doesn't necessarily have to be something that's not harmful, but something that's like painful.
Harsh.
It can be something that a source of pride for people, right? A source of like that American pride that like America is like the best country, and that and like look at all these opportunities that we have because we're Americans. This can be a huge source of pride for people who are immigrants or people who are children of immigrants, right? It's always been a huge source of pride for me. So I'm sure some assimilation for sure can be painful, but especially with don't get me wrong, I definitely grew up with like the cultural divide, right? But it comes together. And again, if we continue to kind of like focus on your identity being a source of pride for you, your American identity, your European identity being a source of pride for you, that everybody in America is collectively like working towards the good of America, then I think that assimilation is a very attainable thing. So.
Yeah. So,
all right, wait. Go ahead, real quick. Get a quick point in, and then I'm gonna take a break for our sponsors here. But go ahead, get your quick take.
It is not going to be a quick point.
Okay,
but,
all right. Well, then just wait. All right, just wait. And we'll pick it back up. Now, I know some of these might try to start up some new conversations too. So just put a pin in what you have there. Write it down, even if you need to, because we are going to go through some of these. Let's see. Okay, this is not Stardust doesn't seem to care about these type. Startled Gecko? I don't think I've heard of that before. Startled Gecko. They thought about that.
$3. Why does Stardust always look like a startled gecko?
I have resting surprised face.
Nick sent
other people have resting
portion
bitch
of
face.
the
I have
south
resting
suburbs of
surprise
Chicago,
face.
Such
So
as Chicago Ridge and Alsip have large Muslim populations. Most stores and billboards are in Arabic. Women roam around in full uniform. Most will not learn English. They are not assimilating.
All right.
I hope their children do.
Anonymous sent $3. It's almost cruel to put this girl in a debate against Mark Collett.
Well, more of a
It's
discussion. Yeah, it's more of a
Donald
discussion.
J. Trump sent $3. Ralph, stop simping, you poof. Let
I
Uncle
didn't
Mark
simp.
the Chad Anglo warrior finish.
You have to
She's
let the
not
other
gonna give you the
guest
sucky just
Thank
because you
you.
know she's in DC now.
Thank you.
BTW Coach Red Pill is alive, lol.
Yeah, thank you.
Marta sent $10. The fact that she says woman rather than women discredits everything else she says. Lamau.
Thank
Can
you.
I respond to that?
Sure, hold on.
Anonymous sent $10.
We have to catch up. I thought that was going to say something, but thank you.
A Hole Anderson sent $3.
Just write down.
Women logic. Bring in 1,000 Islamic rapists, so on Arab women can be free to start an OnlyFans. Typical. The 19th
I don't have an OnlyFans. I never will have an OnlyFans. Secondly, I'm not Arab.
Night Driving Avenger sent $3. When you look at the way affirmative action works, the level of reckless disregard for merit in favor of advancing minority groups into fields like medicine, it's no wonder wise men will seek health care even less and less as time goes on.
Do you think
They're coming so fast? Just hold on. I'm gonna let
they
you.
really don't know?
On cozy. Again. Wearing a bit too much makeup sent $3. Your face is way darker than your chest. I see you brought the girls. I'd sure love to see your dad's dick.
Okay, now you know what? All right, now wait a minute. That's too much, even for me. All right, come on now. That's a little.
Chad is picking a fight with me today, and they're gonna get it.
Sent
So
$3 here. Take my money.
Thank you. I will. I appreciate that. Now go ahead. You wanted to respond to a couple, and then we'll get back to Alt-Hype. Well, no, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me go back through, and I'll make sure there's not a couple more at the end, and then we'll let Alt-Hype get back in. Go ahead, Stardust.
okay, first off, there was a super chat about woman versus woman. Okay, so I get this from my chat all the time too. Okay, why do you say woman and woman the same? Maybe because it's spelled WOMEN. Okay, woman, and then there's WOMAN, woman. I know you don't hear the difference, but there's a pretty big difference there. Now, if you want me to say women, like some people say when they're talking in plural about woman, I'm not going to do that. Okay. I say things the way that they're spelled out. Okay. So I'm not going to do WHEMEN like the rest of you guys do. Okay. Shut up. Stop policing the way that I speak. I thought you guys are anti-policing language. Leave me alone. Okay. Secondly, affirmative action. Which one of you people brought up affirmative action? Do you think that I benefit off of affirmative action? I get put in the Asian category, man. It doesn't work in my favor. Okay. It's really, really cutthroat. Yeah. Anyways, thirdly, showing the girls. Seriously, I'm one of the most conservatively dressed Twitch streamers, and you're the one time I have a slightly lower cut shirt, you guys lose your fucking minds. Maybe you guys need to like grow up a little bit, okay? If you look at any other Twitch streamer, look at any other YouTube streamer, even conservative ones, okay? For the most part, I dress more conservatively than most of them. So you guys can shut up, all right? Sorry. That's
I know.
all
Wait,
to
we
say.
have a couple more, and then we'll let Alt-Hype get back in. Let me see. Okay, this one's supposed to play. Go.
Chat's picking a fight with me today.
They are.
Real Sprockets and $3. What are your takes on male genital mutilation, also known as circumcision?
I'm at circumcision myself, but anyway, go ahead, Stardust.
I think that should be left up to dudes. I can't really speak on that. I think
That's
that
fair.
probably maybe don't do that, since we've seen that medically it's not really necessary anymore. People thought it was necessary for a while. I think the consensus now is that it's really not necessary. So if you're like a dude and you decide later on in life, for some reason, I don't know why, but you would decide to get circumcised later on,
Right.
that's up to you, dude. So yeah.
Yeah, that's my exact take on it, actually.
Yeah.
Stardust. You know why you're in the Asian category is because in the 1920s there was actually a lot of Indian immigrants to San Francisco, and there was back at the time they were brought in under the pretense, under the idea that they classify as white. Are they white immigrants? There was a court case at the time where it was determined Indians are not white. They're put into the Asian category. And something like 20,000 Indians in San Francisco had their citizenship stripped, right? And they were sent back to India, which is why now, to this day, Indians are in the Asian category.
I don't mind it.
And currently, no, now you're competing. Now you're in the Asian category, and so now affirmative action does not work for you. Right?
Well, that's the thing. People always bring the affirmative action argument to me, and they always are trying to use it as an example towards me. I've never benefited off of that. So
sure.
Yeah.
But I just think it's funny that some obscure court case in the 1920s is why you're in the Asian category. Anyway, so what I was gonna say is that you're talking about these religions that infantilize women, and I think what you're sort of getting at is that whenever you have kind of the hegemonic religion or ideology, the hegemonic cult of a place and time, what they'll often do is they'll latch on to things. They'll latch on to sort of the human hardware, and they'll say, oh, these are the gender roles of men and women. And then what they'll do is they'll sort of twist these ASIC elements, these sort of hardware application specific integrated circuit elements into either a bizarre absolute, or they'll overextend it. And so you end up getting religions that are more that force women more than would exist sort of naturally, basically by overextending kind of for example, gender roles. And also when you're talking, but I think you're seeing sort of the same thing with communism as being sort of an overextension of fairness. People have a natural sense of fairness, and then that gets sort of overextended into, to basically what it is you call the left today. Started off with workers' rights and labor socialism, and then transmuted into all sorts of particular ethnic and gender weird, or not gender weird, but sex weird people. So.
By the way, we got Dalton here. He's in the house. He's got the suit. I got to go get my suit jacket now because I said that the other day that I was going to wear my suit jacket. I'm about to go downstairs and get it in just a moment. Good to have him here. We have
it's good to be here, Ralph.
100% good to have him. He's here on Cozy, fellow Cozy streamer. It's getting real cozy. They struck down the YouTube today. We expected it. That's the third one. Actually, the fourth one we've lost this week. We already been kicked off YouTube long ago, but they were letting us get by with the restreams until the Medicare Legionaries got activated the other day. And so, well, you know how it goes. We expected this. All right, now let's play this.
General Septic sent $3. What do you think of Eurasianism?
Eurasianism, anyone?
I don't know what that is.
I don't care about the question. Frank.
It's like Dugan, I think.
Yeah.
It's a particular thing that has to do with geography of Eurasia, but it's not. who cares? I'm gonna leave. It's not because Dalton Cogfelter showed up, but I was actually just gonna leave.
Why would
I'm here?
You can't leave now. I was about to say I was gonna leave. He's gonna think that we both hate him.
Well, I was gonna leave earlier, but then you said Stardust is showing up in 5 minutes, and I didn't want to go. Oh, I'm leaving because.
Wait, Ryan, why would he? Why?
Okay, so you stayed to not look like you're leaving because the brown person joined. I see the way it is.
Yeah, literally, yes. But then Dalton shows up, and I want to leave. And say, oh, but now it looks like I'm leaving.
Literally, yes.
It's okay. I understand.
Now, so more speaking time for Dalton. Okay, I'm heading out.
Thank you. Cool. You'll be on here next week, by the way, and I'll be on your show. I forgot the days on that, but
yeah, we'll get that sorted out. All right, see ya.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Tuesday he's going to be on this show. Thursday I'll be on his show. Okay.
What do you mean Tuesday?
This Tuesday.
What's happening on Tuesday?
What's happening on Tuesday? I don't know.
Yeah, what's happening on Tuesday?
I mean, we're doing the Command and Conquer on the 30th. That's on Saturday.
Oh, the 30th. Oh, I thought that was on Tuesday. I thought it was the 26th. I thought that was the 26th.
We said the 30th.
Well, I can do it anytime.
We said Saturday. It was Saturday, remember?
I thought you were letting me down. I thought you were like weaseling out. I thought this was an Ethan Ralph weaseling session.
Okay, so wait. Yeah, I'm on her show Thursday. Wait. What did I just say? Hold on, wait. What did I say I was going to do Thursday? No, I forgot. You guys got me twisted up. Wait, what did I say?
I thought Command and Conquer was the 26th.
No, okay. Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to go on his show and your show. Oh, fuck. I'm double booked, aren't I? Fuck. It's enough for me to keep up with the guests on my own show. Now I have to keep up with my own appearances, too. I guess I do.
I'm looking back through all of our old chats to see if you've confirmed it.
Okay, I did confirm it.
You did. You said April.
No.
Command and Conquer. I'm reading the chat log.
30th.
I'm gonna put a screen cap. It says this.
No.
26th or 27th. What time? That's for Command and Conquer, and probably 3 p.m. Eastern. I was gonna see if you could come on this Friday, although only 2 p.m. Eastern. I think that's 6 over there now. Yeah, that's for the CNC. It's the remastered on Steam. CNC on April the 26th at 3 p.m. Eastern. April the 26th, I say. Yes. And then he says, but are you also good to come on this Friday on the 18th?
Must be fake.
You have said the 26th, so are you actually moving it?
So. We have to move it. We have to move it to the 30th. I can't do it during the week. I have to do my own shows. I mean, I guess we could do it during because I thought that was Friday. I thought that was Saturday. I don't fucking know. How did I get the 26th? I don't know.
Man.
Oh, it's because March 26th is a Saturday. That's how I got that.
Oh,
I went back to March. I went to March
Okay,
instead of May.
Right.
Yeah, we went back in time.
Yeah, that's good. It's Stardust. Oh no, Stardust's not even a gamer, is she? She's like a weird Twitch person that isn't sexual and isn't a gamer. She like fits into this niche that I've never heard of. Stardust has literally blown my mind.
She's just gross.
Wait a minute. Go ahead. Go ahead, Stardust, if you'd like to respond.
I don't know what I'm responding to. I mean, yeah, I guess I fit into a weird niche. Stop sexualizing me, chat. I don't like it. I do not appreciate it. Thank you. Okay.
I've got to say this as well. There was one point I do want to address, and you were talking about pigeonholing women, and you were saying that you don't want women to be pigeonholed into having to be a mother or having to be part of a family. I'm going to give you an important piece of advice, and you're not going to like it, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. And it might be wasted.
It's not about being pigeonholed into being part of a family. Of course, like women are going to be parts of families. What I'm saying is that you don't know what's going to happen to your partner. Your partner could die. Your partner could get disabled, right? Could be unable to work. So yeah, women need to be able to expand outside of their traditional roles.
Disabled.
So you're not against motherhood as the natural.
No, I'm not. I think some women, I think a lot of women want to be mothers, and I think that's totally fine. And some women maybe don't want to, and they should be able to do what they, choose. I don't think that we should just I don't like the idea that people are telling people that like motherhood isn't like an important thing to do. Of course it is. Right. But I also don't like this idea that we're like telling people that their entire worth should be based off of like their whether they when they do that or when they inevitably do that or whether they do that. I don't know. I think that there needs to be enough flexibility for women who don't fall into those roles to find meaning in their lives.
Let me tell you this. I think there is a coercive and underhand campaign in the West to push women out of their natural role of being a mother and raising children, and instead to push women into the workplace and have them compete with males in environments that they are not biologically able to compete in. And I think this is a bad thing for both men, women, and our society as a whole. Now, my grandma, she had 9 children, and she lived till she was 96 years old. I was with her when she died, and so was all of her children, bar one who had died, and so were dozens of her grandchildren and some of her great-grandchildren. In fact, there were so many people in the house that day when she was dying, when she was finally passing, that not everybody could get into her bedroom to sit by her bedside. In fact, people had to go in there in shifts because there was just so many people. Now, she may have only been a woman that had children. She may only have been a mother and a housewife. She may only have been a homemaker. And I say only in a sarcastic way because I think that's the most important role for a woman. But when she passed, she was surrounded by dozens of people who thought the world of her, who thought she was the center of their world, who loved her, who adored her, and wanted to sit by her and share all the wonderful memories they had with her in her last moments. Now, I'll tell you this, these women who are conned into going into the workplace and give up motherhood to strive for that all-important Employee of the Month award, when they die, they'll die alone. They'll lie in a bed looking at those old dusty Employee of the Month awards. And I'll tell you what, they won't have lived as warm a life as my grandma did, and they won't die as pleasant a death as my grandma did, because they've been conned, and they've been conned by vicious, vile, anti-white feminists who wish to destroy Western society by splitting men and women apart and pushing women into unnatural roles, which are as bad for Western society as they are for women as individuals.
Let's go. Let's go. Ralph, I like this guy. That was sick, dude.
Mark Collett, thank you, sir. You got anything else? I don't want to keep you all night. I want to send you on a high.
That's just
there,
my advice.
So if I can respond to that.
Go ahead if you want. Sure.
Yeah. I understand that you are I think your story of your grandmother is very touching. But just because a woman chooses to go into the workforce doesn't mean that she chooses automatically to disregard having any idea of having a family, right? It doesn't mean that I don't see why we can't have both, right? Why can't women and men both be in their families, taking care of their children, and then also have things outside of their families that they're passionate about and work towards, right? Like, men have been kind of afforded to be able to do that. And I think it's in some ways, men have unfortunately had to face the burden of doing that. But I think creating a more equal dynamic can only be good for that family, right? Again, you don't know what's going to happen to your partner. They could die, they could become disabled, they could face some injury that prevents them from working, right? And in that case, even if you are a stay-at-home mom, you are going to have to pick up the slack. So what you're talking about regarding like women who are working, not being surrounded by people who love them, I would disagree. I think like when you die, the people who love you, if you've been a good person in your life and you've worked hard and you've lifted up the other people around you, regardless of like your family, you're probably going to be surrounded by people who support you and care about you, right? The important thing is like lifting people up around you. And I think that we need to be sharing the responsibility for men and for women, right? So men can at least have some burden taken off their shoulders, even if it's a small bit, right? And women can expand the meaning of their lives to be beyond just family, right? Because what happens when your children grow older and they leave the house and now you have nothing, right, to do, nothing to spend your time on, right? So I think I understand where you're coming from, and you're obviously coming from a much more traditional viewpoint, but that doesn't need to be the norm for everybody. There needs to be some flexibility that women can expand into different roles. Women can choose to pursue careers if they want, and choose to settle down when they want, right? There doesn't need to be this like one or the other. There can be plenty of mixes of both.
Look, I can say this. During my time on social media and streaming, I have debated some obnoxious gimps. You, however, seem like a genuinely nice person. You seem like somebody who's genuinely curious. You seem to debate in good faith. And you also seem to be someone who is eager to have good faith conversations. However, I do think you are greatly misled. The people who will be surrounding you in your twilight years and the people who will be standing at your bedside won't be people you've had the odd awkward conversation with in the staff room as you passed around the UHT milk. That is not what happens. It will be your children. It will be your grandchildren. It will be people you have blood ties with. The most important thing in life is your blood. It's the people who are connected to you by something more. And when I say your blood, I am not just talking about, for me, my immediate family, but also my extended family. You know, I am a racial nationalist. And I believe that family is the cornerstone of everything good, everything noble, and of our very civilization. But it's not just the cornerstone of our civilization. It's central to who we are. And I do think at heart you're a good person. I'd really hope you do listen to what I say, and I hope you take some of this on board, because ultimately, I wouldn't want to see somebody like you lying there with tubes up your nose staring at the Employee of the Month award. I'd prefer you one day to be thinking back to that guy you spoke to and think, he gave me some good advice, and I'm surrounded by, you know, these wonderful children and, you know, these wonderful grandchildren. I hope you live a genuine, fulfilled life, because I don't think you're a bad person, but I think the people you're listening to and the people who are trying to drag you towards feminism, the people who are trying to drag you away from nature, wholesomeness, tradition, and family, those people are bad people. Those people are evil people. And those people are the people who are trying to destroy the West. And really, that's all I've got to say for tonight, because I've been on for nearly 3 hours. Sure. It has been really nice talking to you. And I'm not just trying to rush away, but it's like pushing past 10
It's
here.
been a minute.
And I would happily come and talk to you again, because as I said, a few weeks ago, I spoke to two of the most obnoxious gimps that I've ever met in my life, and it was like pulling teeth. But you seem to be a genuinely nice person. I just hope you can see through the lies that you're being fed by this evil, anti-white, anti-natural system that not only wants to destroy the West, but I will say it wants to destroy and dominate the entire world for the benefit of one very ethnocentric and traditional tribe, which does the very opposite of what they preach to everybody else.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming on. And you said it. Maybe we'll have
Dalton, nice to meet you. Not running away from you. Would like to get to know you at, hopefully, you know, I'm James Haig. Hello.
Hi, Haig.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Testing. Hello, my friend. How you doing?
Doing well. Nice to meet you again, Mark, and nice to see you, Stardust.
Would love to collaborate with all three of you, Stardust, Dalton, and James. We'll
get you back with Stardust. I feel like we need to finish that conversation.
I think we could have a very productive conversation.
Yeah, and also, Ralph, just one small thing.
Sure.
Do not move the Command and Conquer.
I won't. It's April 30th. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even if a gang of Portugal thugs come here hunting for me again for round 2.
Command and Conquer date.
No.
You will forever be known. As basically the Command and Conquer.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's me. It has to be Command and Conquer cuck, right? That's the joke. All right, no, it's happening April 30th, 100%. Mark Collett, Killstream Hall of Famer, first ballot. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you to Ralph. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to Stardust, James, and Dalton. James, Dalton, sorry I'm backing out now. Would love to stream with you both at some time. Hopefully we can work it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
See you later, guys. Have a nice evening.
Take care.
Will do. Thank you, Mark.